It's as close to time travel as we're gonna get. This Week in Music History with Marty Miller.
Hello there, and a very good week to you as we get set to fly through the week of September 30th until October 4th. Now, the podcast, the whole idea is that it doesn't look at last year or 2 years ago. It looks at pretty much all the years when music was special. How quickly could you become a household name in 1967?
Within the space of a week or 2 weeks, you became a national name.
We get some drug science, according to Marianne Faithfull.
But something like LSD, if it wasn't meant to happen, it wouldn't have been invented.
Oh. And Sinead O'Connor hurts her career and makes a dent in NBC's bank accounts this week, back in 1992.
Fight the real enemy.
This Week in Music History. A week in less than 10 minutes.
So, because this podcast started out as a little feature on the radio, I do like to mark radio anniversaries on it. So, for example, it was this week in 1967 that across the water in the UK, they got their first national pop station. BBC Radio 1 was launched. DJ on the air was a fella called Tony Blackburn. He'd come over from the pirate ship Radio Caroline. The song, The Move, Flowers in the Rain, was the first record he ever played on BBC Radio 1. Here he is.
And good morning, everyone. Welcome to the exciting new sound of Radio 1.
As the first DJ on this pioneering new station, it was not long before Tony Blackburn became a household name.
I went in with the breakfast show and modelled it on what I'd been doing out on the pirate ships for quite some time, bringing about American radio into this country with personality and terrific jingles, and we did it. The combination of Top of the Pops and Radio 1 was enormous because we had the monopoly at that time, enormous audiences. I mean, my first breakfast show on Radio 1 was 21 million. You know, every morning, 20 million, 21 million people, gigantic audiences. So immediately, within the space of a week or 2 weeks, you became a national name.
Do you know that Tony Blackburn is still going in the UK, doing various shows for independent radio and for the BBC? Mark Bolan was born this week in 1947, sadly killed in a car crash 2 weeks before his 30th birthday. He even had his own primetime TV show on the opposition of the BBC, ITV.
All right, welcome to a new show called Mark. Could be a lot of new sounds, a lot of new experiences. The biggest and the best so far this week are an amazing group called Jam.
I love this story. In 1956, a test audience gave a watch to the movie Love Me Tender, which starred Elvis Presley. So then, after they saw the movie, I went, oh no, because Elvis died in the movie. He was brought back in to reshoot the end of it, and in the new ending, the hero, Elvis, lived.
Starring Richard Egan as Vance Reno, who came back from the wars to claim his bride. Deborah Paget as Kathy, who loved one Reno brother but married another. And introducing Elvis Presley as Clint Reno, who loved his brother but also loved his brother's girl.
Nobody asks why a woman falls in love and gets married.
You do. You ask me with every look, and you've got no right to think I was faithless.
Say you want your lover. Say you ain't laid awake every night by my side thinking of him. Wishing I was Vance.
Zipping through a week in a matter of minutes. This Week in Music History, the podcast.
Wasn't all peace and love in 1967. Thieves broke into Mick Jagger's flat in London and stole jewellery and fur coats belonging to his then-girlfriend Marianne Faithfull. But also in 1967, and somewhat messing with the law, Marianne herself.
It's not groovy to take anything. We should be able to be in a state where we don't need cigarettes or drink or anything like that at all, or marijuana. But something like LSD, if it wasn't meant to happen, it wouldn't have been invented somehow. I think it was important that. I know so many people that before they took LSD was such a drag. And they took LSD and they really opened up. And then, of their own accord, they stopped. nearly everybody has stopped taking LSD now.
You stopped.
I stopped, yeah.
We mentioned Elvis in 1956 and his starring role in the movie Love Me Tender, but by 1977 he'd be gone. And the body of Elvis and his mum Gladys were moved from the cemetery they were buried in over to Graceland. Why? Well, because three boyos decided to body snatch Elvis, or attempt to do so at least, hence he was moved to Graceland.
They filed past the grave site here at the Meditation Garden, where Elvis is buried now along with his mother Gladys.
This week in 1995, Oasis gave the world their second album, What's the Story, Morning Glory. Here he is, been nice and humble about things, Noel Gallagher.
Wonderwall took 10 minutes, literally. Cast No Shadow took like 10 minutes. Morning Glory took about 20 minutes. It just, I mean, when I was writing the songs for that album, they were just coming so fast like that. We knew it was just going to be like the biggest selling album of this decade and the best album of this decade. I don't know where they came from, and to this day it still startles me. They were just coming out, man, and I was writing like a song, you know, I was writing 2 songs a day, man.
2018, Beatles engineer at Abbey Road, Jeff Emerick, died. We managed to have Jeff in, actually, at the radio station on Nova.
Did they know how important they were at that stage or how important they would become?
Did they know at that stage? No, I mean, I think that up to when we started to do Revolver musically, everything sort of changed from that moment on for years to come, and then that's the importance started to you know settle into themselves because of the complexity of the way we were recording the music, because no one had recorded music like that, especially Tomorrow Never Knows. So it was becoming important from that sort of stage, I guess, and because then Sgt. Pepper was a development of that. Yeah. It's very complex.
This week in music history, a week in less than 10 minutes.
1992, what a scandal. Sinead O'Connor ripped up a photograph of Pope John Paul II on US television Saturday Night Live, coast to coast. So, big, huge television show. This wasn't rehearsed. There was a stunned silence in the studio. NBC, the company who broadcast Saturday Night Live, were fined 2.5 million quid for this.
Of good over evil. Fight the real enemy.
In 1970 this week, the singer Janis Joplin was found dead in a Hollywood hotel or motel. An accidental heroin overdose. She was a gutsy lady, though.
Went to Europe and played over there about a month. Scared him to death, I think.
Did you have fun?
No, I had a terrible time.
Did you really?
Nobody really gets loose and nobody rocks over there. They're all so cerebral. They're really cerebral.
Zipping through a week in a matter of minutes. This week in music history, the podcast.
Pink Floyd were number 1 in 1975 on the album chart with Wish You Were Here. This was the album that featured a tribute to their ex-band member and friend of David Gilmour, Syd Barrett. Shine On You Crazy Diamond.
Schizophrenia or any sort of mental illness at the time. And it's very easy with hindsight to look back and think, well, we could have done this or we could have done that, but at the time we just got on with the job in hand.
Incidentally, I met a neighbour of Syd Barrett's just this week when I was in Brighton. She was like, oh yeah, I grew up next door to Syd Barrett when I lived in Cambridge. By the end, apparently, he'd lost a load of weight and was quite together. And then finally in 1982, the Smiths made their live debut at the Ritz in Manchester. This is the only known performance of Suffer Little Children. And that's a look at this week in music history, flying through September 30th to October 4th. See you next time.
This week in music history, a week in less than 10 minutes.